Welcome back, everybody. I'm the Redstone Warper here with the secrets of perfect wireless redstone. Now, before I go too far into this video, it is important to note, please watch through the entire video if you're really interested in the wireless redstone stuff, because there's a good chance a lot of the questions that you have will be answered in a later part of the video. I will be doing a build tutorial as well as a frequently asked questions section to try to get you up to speed on all of the different quirks of wireless redstone. Today I'd like to show you my 2-wide Tileable wireless redstone machine, where the outputs are just every other block, which is perfect for making redstone computers with Wi-Fi. But not only did I make a 2-wide Tileable version, I made two 2-wide Tileable versions using a different clock that was invented by Fold, a member of my Discord server who's been helping, along with many others, to invent new wireless redstone that is a little bit better. This design features a new clock that uses this piston observer technique to create a clock. You have to use a completely separate transmitter with it. This is the final version over here, and so the transmitter for that one looks a little bit something like this, although the end of this has been modified in the latest versions. The way this one works is to attempt to not need the chunk load detector to reset the clock, and so by doing this, it will always continue cycling around. The longest you would have to wait is for this daylight sensor to update again, which can take a little bit of time depending on the time of day and when you would reload this in, so it's not as good for super reliability's sake, but it is a little bit simpler. It's good for something if you don't mind waiting a little bit before it starts ticking again. As you can see, it still has the basic components of detecting the difference between these two comparators, but with some rail and observer madness to make it so that it is 2-wide tileable. Unfortunately, it is AB tileable because these rails need to be alternated, but that is the only difference as you tile it. And of course, we have the original clock design with the chunk load detector, featuring an all-new chunk load detector that is a little bit smaller so that it can fit all in line like this. Now, you do notice there's a few blocks that hang off to the side. That is not a problem, as you can see when we show you the tiled version. They just tile up in a nice little way. We have a little trick to make this work where all the clocks are side by side. I did try around with a whole bunch of clocks that are in different shapes like this to try to get one that was more streamlined and one wide, but the problem with these clocks is update orders and things. It didn't work with the transmitter. With the wireless redstone machines, it is extremely important in the order of which ticks are processed. The whole reason wireless redstone works is the difference between when comparators get updated and repeaters get updated, and so every little tiny difference makes a difference in how the transmitter will behave. First here, we got the standard design. If we just turn that on, and we can fly over here. We can then push each one of these buttons here, and you can see the redstone lamps are starting to fire across over there. This weird little pattern of raising and lowering them is just so that we can fit them all into the same 2-wide pseudo tileability that the transmitter is in. And over here we have the observer based clock design. We can turn it on right here, and if we come over here, we can then toggle each one of these redstone dusts, and the same signals will be transmitted over. Like that. And the cool thing about this is it all fits into one chunk, and you have 8 signals, which is perfect for hooking up to a computer. All of these blocks need to be synced at the daylight sensor for both designs, because obviously if this block is over here, this daylight sensor will not get updated correctly because more than one side could be exposed to light at the same time. And there will be schematics for all of these designs in the description, as well as a world download with every wireless redstone machine. Now, there is a little bit of a problem with the observer-based clock ones. As you can see, the machine is working just fine here, but for some reason I get occasional glitches where you will turn it on and it will start randomly giving outputs. Just to clarify, if it spazzes out when you turn it on, turn it back off and on again, and usually it sorts itself out. Now, you may have noticed that wireless redstone has random errors sometimes, and we originally tried to fix it with a design over here that attempted to use another transmitter to detect an error at the same time and cancel it out. The problem with this actually canceled some of the errors, but when we discovered that dropper randomness was the devil, and we were able to fix that by changing this repeater to 2 ticks, and that solved that randomness. So that actually eliminated the errors that this thing could block. Now, we were getting some random other errors that weren't always detected, and they were super random. But through the power of a lot of people on the Discord server testing, which all their names will be appearing on screen right now, so I would like to thank each and every one of you for helping me test wireless redstone, invent new designs. It's been a blast. We discovered that it was actually the client-side rendering that was causing the problem. As you know, wireless redstone works better on multiplayer than it does on single player, which was kind of weird. So one of the people in the Discord, Momo, was able to look through the code a little bit and figured out that the errors in single player was that the entity ID was being shared with the rendering and with the integrated server. This was causing it so that sometimes the client could override the server's entity ID and cause a random blip where there shouldn't have been. So the good news is that it's based on the client-side rendering, which means you can make wireless redstone perfect by just not loading it with the player on a vanilla single-player world. So if you use a chunk loader to load it and you never go there, or you put it in the spawn chunks, it will never give you any glitches as long as you're using one of the latest designs that has been tested to always work. So this is great. We now know how to have perfect wireless redstone in Minecraft. But that is not all. Momo then took the extra step and wrote a fabric mod to fix the client-side rendering issue, giving it its own entity ID system, making it so that wireless redstone will work perfect even when the player is loading it. Again, this doesn't affect servers because servers, the client and the server, are completely separated instead of being integrated like they are when you're on single player or playing on a LAN world. Now, before I get into the build tutorial, which has been requested by plenty of people, I'm gonna do a little bit of the frequently asked questions that I get about wireless redstone. Does this work on paper, spigot, bucket? No, unfortunately not, because of quote-unquote optimizations that these make. The way hoppers process entities and the way entities even work is completely changed, meaning that this wireless redstone is completely broken in anything that is not a fabric or a vanilla server. So unfortunately, this is only limited to servers that play in a vanilla setting, and I can link to a set of mods that are used for optimizations that still work with wireless redstone so that you can have a not quite vanilla server, but still have some of those optimizations. How do I change the frequency on the wireless redstone? To change the frequency, the repeater chains here are the frequency. So to change it, what you need to do is you need to change any one of these to be both the same. So we can put these two here, and if we spin around and turn it on real quick here, you can see that the transmitter has started, and we can push this transmitter and it doesn't work. What's wrong? Well, we also have to have the same setting on this repeater to there as well. So we can push that button and it'll work again. So your wireless redstone isn't working. Here are some things to check. Make sure that the transmitter and the receiver are both facing in the same direction. This is because different directions are processed a little differently, and so if I rotate this 90 degrees, this transmitter will no longer work with this wireless redstone. Another thing to check is to make sure that you have some items up here. Here I have a whole stack, some in the bottom, one in the top. You can probably put about 15 in each one of these droppers up here. Down here, you can pretty much put as many items as you want, but what seems to work good is to have 6 up here and 3 down there, so you have 9 in total, and that seems to keep it running pretty good. If it is still not working, make sure that it's running on a vanilla environment. If you're running some mods, maybe try turning all of them off. If it works, then you know that one of the mods is affecting it, and you can slowly turn them on to figure out which mod is breaking. If you're still having problems, you can join the Discord, which there is a link in the description, and we would be happy to be able to help you debug it and figure out what's going on. Do I have to use netherite boots with Frostwalker 2? No, you don't. You could use Frostwalker 1, or you could just use some leather boots or whatever boots you happen to have on hand. It definitely doesn't need to be netherite. Okay, now for the much requested build tutorial. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to build this part first, because this part is the same for both designs, and then I will split the tutorial into both clock sections for how to build each clock. Alright, so to build the receiver, which is the complicated part, you're going to start by deciding where you want your output to be. So we're just going to put a redstone lamp there, and that's where you will take your output into whatever machine that you want to control. So we're going to have a comparator, or a repeater on 3 ticks, a comparator, and another repeater like this, and we're going to place a block up here. This block is going to be powered by a observer there, and an observer here. You're going to have a dropper here, an observer facing down into that dropper so that the chain will pass through and connect there. This is where your first comparator is going to go, and your second comparator is going to go here. We can go ahead and place in the dropper tower here. So you're going to place 2 facing up and 1 to the side, and we're going to grab a hopper and we're going to place it right here. That's what your comparator is going to be detecting. Then you're going to place an observer that faces this way and a block right here, and you're going to connect this with a rail. Notice that with these comparators here, you have one observer, one observer, one observer, one observer, so 2 observers and 2 observers so that they fire at the exact same time. This is what's detecting the difference between the 2 hoppers here. Next, we're going to go ahead and get our trapdoors in place. What you're going to want to do is get a temporary block over here to place both trapdoors so that they open like this. This is important for the 2-wide tileability. Then you're going to go ahead and place trapdoors on top of here and here so that the trapdoors create this little separation. Then if this is the last one in the line, we're going to take a block of glass and we're going to place it just like this. If you want, you can also do any block here. I also kind of like using trapdoors because it makes it look a little bit more sleek. The next thing you're going to need to do is place 2 blocks here. This is the place that's actually going to get powered. We're going to want to place a block here, and we're going to place 2 repeaters on 2 ticks right there. Then right here, you're going to place the observers, which face into here. And we're going to grab some glass blocks. Actually, this one is not a glass block, this one needs to be a normal block. And we're going to place rails just like this. You want to make sure that these rails are facing like this. Depending on the orientation you're building this in, you might have to fiddle around with them a little bit so that they are 2 lines just like this. The next thing you need to do is add a glass block right here, and we're going to just build this little staircase system here with a block right there so that you can then run some redstone dust up across here, which powers it. We're going to place a couple blocks right here, and we're going to put a repeater on 2 ticks and a repeater on 1 tick right there. Then we're going to come up a block like this, and we're going to go over 3, and we're going to put some redstone here, and then we're going to come up 1, 2, and 3. And this first block down here is going to be a 2-tick repeater. Then we're going to build up and over here. This is going to be a redstone torch right here. Now we can place a block right here and a repeater on 3 ticks. On top of the repeater, we're going to want to place a dropper facing upwards, when that dropper facing to the side on top, and a hopper. If you were tiling this, this is where the next hopper and dropper would be like that, but since we're not, we're just going to place glass around the sides. But since we're not, we're just going to place glass around the sides to keep all the items in. Of course, you can just put 32 or so items in the dropper just like that. You're also going to want to place a torch on the side of this dropper, which means this should then turn off. We're then going to place 2 blocks to the side right here, 2 blocks up top, and we can just connect this with some dust that we'll use later here. Now you're going to come here and you're going to go out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 blocks here, and you're going to go 7 blocks on the side just like this. This is where your comparator is going to go, and we'll snag a repeater from over here, and you're going to put this on 2 ticks, this on 3 ticks, and then just fill these repeaters in like so. This is then where you will change all the different timings. Now, for the standard clock, these 2 repeaters can be anything you want, as long as this can be up to 3, and this can go up to, this would be 4 when this is 3 to compensate for the comparator there, which is what creates that tick difference between the 2 different items dropping. If you're using the observer-based design, this has to be on 2 ticks or more, and this one has to be 1 tick more than the other one there. The next thing you're going to do, if this is a tileable version, these 2 blocks right here will need to be target blocks, but if you're just using it by itself, it doesn't need to be a target block. We're going to come up here and we're going to place a block like this with some dust. Build, I did that backwards. We're going to place a dropper facing up with a dropper to the side and a hopper. These blocks do need to be solid blocks, so we'll then put dust all across on top of this with some glass on the sides to keep the items in. And then here we can place our final item recycler, and we can just place it just like this. Just like so. And now we can just put some items and make sure that each one of these has items in it so that they can cycle around and around forever. Small mistake on my part, trying to do this from memory. These blocks need to be up here so that the redstone goes into the dropper, which powers the torch, as well as the repeater down below. And we're going to place some observers here looking at the note blocks, the observers down into some blocks with some note blocks at the bottom. Now this machine is done, you want to make sure that you have plenty of items inside of here, so you can just put 6 up at the top, 3 at the bottom, and you'll be good to go, or you can put more if you so desire. So I made a little bit of a mistake here. This needs to be a glass block because we don't need that comparator powering this line right here. Then to make the observer-based clock design, we're going to place a observer here, which is where we will be detecting the daylight sensor. You're going to place a piston down here with a lever for now. This is how you're going to turn it on and off. You're going to place a temporary block, and we're going to place a daylight sensor on night mode like that. We're going to go 2 blocks up, and we're going to create this plus shape. This plus shape prevents any extra updates to the daylight sensor from the side to ensure that the piston right here, which cycles back and forth, will detect or will cause the updates properly. To build the transmitter, we're going to lay out 8 blocks like this with a block up on top here, redstone dust here. We're going to make our same little dropper towers by placing some droppers like this and like this with a hopper to collect the item that it spits out. We're going to just put a couple items in here. You don't need to really put too many, but I like to put a couple just so that you don't have to worry about it. We're going to then encase this with glass real quick to keep all the items inside, and this is pretty much the same for both transmitters at this stage. We can then put our series of 8 repeaters like so, and our transmitter, we have it on 2 ticks here. Now we're going to take our normal sticky piston needs to go right here, and we're going to build up an extra block here, and our piston is going to be facing down right here. We're going to put a block here, piston facing outwards like this, and our daylight sensor on night mode is going to be right here. We're going to then grab an observer, place that here, and then we can go ahead and place another observer facing down into this block, and put anything you want to use to toggle it. Now we should be able to turn on the transmitter here, and using the transmitter right here, we should be able to then send a signal to our brand new wireless redstone machine. Now for the slightly better clock design, because it doesn't have some of the weird glitches the other clock does when you start it up, and it does not require, it uses the chunk resetting to make it so that it is ready to receive signals right away. What we're going to do is we're going to come a block down here, we're going to place a torch here, we're going to put a repeater on full ticks here. Right here we're going to do a target block, and then we're going to create redstone dust that goes into here like a clock. Because it's going to make a little extra noise, we're just going to place a lever here just to stop the clock in silence. We're going to place a comparator there, which will be used for the decay circuit here. And then we're going to place a block right here to keep the dust from connecting. Next, we need to come out another block here and put a repeater on 3 ticks, an observer facing up into this block so that it will then power the system. And this is actually where your daylight sensor is going to go. You're going to make sure that it is covered on all sides except for this one, although I like to put a block here just because it looks better. And this is where your piston is going to go that is actually going to be doing the update. So you can place that here, and you should be able to see it update like that. Then we're going to place 2 blocks up here like this, and this is going to be part of the circuit to turn it on and off, and place a lever right here. Of course, with the tiled version, it's a little bit differently. Now we can turn on this lever and remove the temporary one, and then we're going to place 2 observers down like this. This piston actually needs to be 1 back like so, We can put the block here, and we can put another sticky piston right here. This makes it so that it will update itself when you turn it on. Now we're going to actually do a reset feature that will do it when it loads into the game. So we're going to go up here. We're going to go up here, place a piston facing downwards with a sticky piston, and this is what's actually going to trigger the system. Then we're going to place our piston right here. We do need to use target blocks for this so that it does not affect the sticky piston right there. Then we're going to place a repeater like that with some redstone dust up here. We're going to place a block to keep it from connecting, and we're going to place a block on top of here, just like that. Then our observer, we can kind of sneak it in like that. That way, and because it's a transparent block, the redstone signal will pass down through it just fine. We're then going to take a wall of any kind, just to make sure it's a wall. I like the look of the deep slate tiled walls, they just look cool. Then we're going to build up the little containment area for the water, so you just want to kind of make a square around the sticky piston right there. And we're going to place some extra blocks here on the sides, like so. Then we're going to take a stair block. The quartz looks nice, but you can use any stair that you want. And we're going to grab a water bucket to put all the water in. We can place the stairs like this. You're going to place a bucket, and for this round you can either place a bucket here or just put a temporary block and break it. That way this turns into a water source block. Then you're just going to want to take your armor stand, and you're going to put some Frostwalker 1 or 2 boots on it, whichever you have, or you can make some. If you're doing this in creative for whatever reason, you can do the /enchant, whatever your username is, with Frostwalker 2, and there you go. Now that the receiver is done, it's time to build up the transmitter. So we're just going to place a couple blocks up here. These aren't super important, you could just build it on the ground, but it always looks a little bit better here. So we're going to place we're going to go like this. We're going to place a comparator on subtract mode over here. Any ordinary comparator right there. And then we're going to grab our daylight sensor and a couple repeaters. The daylight sensors both need to be on night mode, and then in total you want this to be 8 long. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we're going to put a block on top with a piece of redstone dust. From here on out, this part of the contraption is just the same as the other one. I'll go ahead and show it anyways. We're going to place a droppers up here, and then dropper to the side, dropper to the side, and then we're going to go ahead and grab ourselves a hopper and place it like this. Then we're just going to take some glass, but you can put any block here. I just like the glass because you can kind of see through it and make sure that it's working properly. Now that we've done that, we can just take random any old block. This could be whatever you want. Just put a couple in there so that it has plenty to cycle through. Now for the last part, we're going to need to grab ourselves a sticky piston and a redstone torch, as well as a piece of redstone dust. The way we're going to do this is we're going to place a piston on top of this repeater with a block. This is the block that actually goes over this daylight sensor. Then we're going to place a block here with a redstone torch. This makes sure that it is always off no matter what, unless we actually push the button. Then we can just put a button on top like this, and this would transmit just like so. You know, it can also place a block up here, put the button here, and the redstone dust down there. It really doesn't matter. So if we go ahead and turn it on now that we have the receiver built, then we can come over here, press the button, it'll transmit, and as you can see, the signal has been received over here. Well, once again, I'd like to say, if this does not work for you, go ahead and rewind the video a little bit, look through to see if there's any tiny little details you might have missed, as this machine is extremely sensitive to the tiniest little change. Another extremely important thing as to where you build this machine is, in order for it to work properly, it needs to be contained in one chunk. What I mean by this is, alright, so this has a little bit of it hanging out, but that is actually okay because every entity that is happening is inside of this chunk. That is the important part, as there will always be redstone processing chunks around this entity processing chunk as long as the entities are loaded in here. So the armor stand, these droppers here, and most importantly these dispensers here are all in one chunk. If it's on a chunk boundary, things can break quite often. And I would also like to take a tiny bit to say thank you to everybody who's been subscribed and joining the Discord and helping build this amazing community. We just hit over 700 subscribers so quickly that I didn't even have time to make a 500 subscriber milestone. So I've already started planning for the 1,000 because you guys are going there extremely quickly. This has been the Redstone Warper, warping redstone one machine at a time. Thanks for watching.